Today, we embark on a journey to explore the dynamic landscape of the Denver Public Library, or as we call it, the DPL. Our mission is to delve deep into the heart of DPL, dissecting its strategies, endeavors, and aspirations. We aim to shed light on the library's current state, its community engagements, efforts, the language it employs, and its commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But why Denver Public Library, you might ask? DPL, like many libraries worldwide, stands at the intersection of tradition and innovation, bridging the past with the future. Our assessment seeks to understand how DPL adapts, evolves, and thrives in changing times, technological advancements, and societal shifts. Our purpose is clear: to assess, analyze, and evaluate DPL's position and practices, ensuring they remain aligned with modern trends and community needs. We will explore the strategies it employs to engage with its diverse community, its utilization of vocabulary and lexicon to convey value and importance, and its commitment to fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion. The following pages will present our findings, insights, and recommendations. Through this comprehensive assessment, we aim to provide valuable insights for the Denver Public Library, illuminating its path toward a more vibrant, engaged, and innovative presence in the community. Join us on this enlightening journey as we explore the multifaceted world of the Denver Public Library. In this place, knowledge meets innovation, and where community connection thrives. The Denver Public Library, DPL, not only adapts to, but thrives in the ever-evolving landscape of library services. One of the key highlights is DPL's strategic shift towards delivering a holistic, whole library experience. Instead of simply focusing on increasing the number of library card signups, they've embraced a comprehensive approach that extends their services beyond traditional boundaries. Some positive influences contribute to DPL's adaptability and success. First, we have the My Denver card, which is a game changer. This card grants school-aged children in Denver access to a wide range of facilities, including recreation centers, swimming pools, cultural institutions, and the library's resources. The DPL website states it's all about enriching the experience. Another positive influencer is the introduction of e-cards. These e-cards provide immediate access to online library resources, making library services more accessible to the community, especially in the digital age. But like any organization, DPL faces its set of challenges. One notable challenge is the open policy for Colorado residents. While inclusivity is necessary, this policy allows individuals with a Colorado address, including out-of-state college students, to sign up for a DPL card. This can strain resources and require careful management. And lastly, an important point to note is the absence of source tracking for new library card signups. DPL currently lacks a mechanism to track where new users are coming from. This poses a challenge in assessing the effectiveness of their outreach and marketing efforts. So as we explore DPL's journey, remember how they've adapted their strategies, embraced new initiatives, and navigated these challenges to continue providing excellent library services in a changing world. The DPL website features a community engagement page where they state the library undertakes wide-ranging community engagement efforts, reaching out to the greater Denver community to discover its aspirations, concerns, and needs. The library uses this information to guide its strategic work and to be responsive to the needs of the communities and customers it serves. A big part of their community engagement efforts include the hosting of community conversations. Summaries of these community conversations are found in the DPL's Our Denver reports linked in the Community Engagements page. These reports discuss what issues the residents believe are affecting the community, what the residents think can be done, and what the DPL will do to address the issues. Some of the things DPL listed they will do in their 2018 report is to continue to hold these conversations and to seek out diverse residents to include their voices in the conversations. However, it is unclear if this is something that has continued to happen, as the latest available report is from 2018. The website features a clickable link to their 2019 Our Denver report, but it is broken, so it is not known if the 2019 conversation occurred, and there are no links for conversation summaries from the more recent years. The DPL also stated they will be partnering with the community organizations and government agencies to address taking action on issues such as safety and affordability and job availability, to name a few. But again, it is unclear if this is something that has actually happened, as there is no available information on their website or strategic roadmap dashboard about this particular goal. We reached out to the library for an interview about their community engagement efforts, but we did not receive a response. The DPL does try to measure community engagement efforts in a number of ways, though. In the 2021 through 2024 Strategic Roadmap Report, the DPL identifies a few indicators of success for community engagement, the first of which is welcoming everyone. One of the ways in which this is measured is by analyzing the percentage of Denver residents with an active library card, as seen in the available graph. These numbers have actually decreased in the past few years, indicating there are some roadblocks to success. The DPL states that this may be attributed to services that the library offers for which no card is needed. These include reading list recommendations, programming participation, presentation attendance, and some computer use. Another indicator of success the DPL uses is honoring public trust, which they measure through the percentage of public respondents who trust the library to do what is best for the community. This is a recent data point the DPL has started collecting, so there is no historical data to compare the results to. While most people agreed to this statement, the library is a good use of public funds, in the statistically valid survey, there were 13% of respondents that said they don't know when responding to that statement. That could point to respondents not having much contact with the library and so not feeling confident in saying one way or another. This could indicate that the library needs to reword the question or needs to make more of an effort with community engagement. This also doesn't show how non-library users view the library, which is an important piece of information for the library to be aware of, especially when measuring the success of community engagement. Fostering curiosity is in part measured by the percentage of new library cards issued and active. While this is an important piece of data for the library to know, better measurements for community engagement would be library as a space for connection and togetherness, which is under development, and strategic partnerships, the percentage of partnerships rated as highly effective or effective. However, there is no quantifiable data for these indicators that is available to the public. DPL is also aware that due to the fact that they don't track source for new library cards, they don't have a way to concretely measure if certain outreach or marketing efforts are working or if they have a strong word of mouth influence. The DPL has been good about stating they are involved in community engagement efforts, and numbers have shown that people are using the library and have relatively positive views of it. Their action plan even includes strategic goals focused on community engagement. However, there is a lack of measurable data that identifies whether they have been successful or not. The DPL may need to find space in their budget for more community engagement efforts, and they may need to reevaluate how they are addressing community needs, as their focus seems to be primarily needs based rather than assets based. Asset-based community development, ABCD, rather than needs-based focuses on what's strong rather than what's wrong, as quoted from Cormac Russell, director of ABCD Europe. Russell also states that ABCD engages people as it allows for co-creation of ideas between organization and community. In his keynote presentation on ABCD principles linked for further watching, he says, when the people who are defined as the problem secure the power to redefine the problem, we will transform society because everybody knows at the end of the day, you cannot possibly know what a community needs until they first know what they have. By identifying assets in the Denver community, DPL would be able to connect and align them for leverage and mobilize them for action. Some assets the DPL has already identified are their Denver recreation centers and cultural venues. By partnering with United Healthcare and the City of Denver, the DPL has been able to offer a My Denver card, which provides access to recreation centers, swimming pools, and various cultural facilities, as well as the library. However, this is only available for school-aged children. To further identify and mobilize assets, DPL will need to dedicate time, money, and staff toward doing so. Luckily, the library is involved in the Strong Library, Strong Denver initiative, which provides funding to the library to more fully meet the evolving needs of the community. However, we recommend that the DPL not just meet the needs and use this funding to identify Denver's strengths and its people and places and spaces and capitalize on these things for the benefit of all. One strategy that a public library can adopt is to update traditional vocabulary terms to align to a more value-enhanced lexicon that communicates the importance of the work libraries do. Such changes to terminology are described by Valerie J. Gross in her book Transforming Our Image, Building Our Brand, The Education Advantage. In the book, Gross prescribes a change in how familiar terms that the library has used in the past to a vocabulary that is more intentional and powerful. Gross describes the powerful terms as traditional, such as program, programming, reference desk, circulation desk, and recommends changing them to a strategic terms such as class, classes, and workshops, research desk, and customer service desk. This strategic change, according to Gross, is meant to shift perception of the library to more important value-enhanced vocabulary that requires no explanation, which in turn can translate to potentially more funding. Denver Public Library does employ some strategic changes in vocabulary and language to describe resources that it provides to its community. One example of this is a new learning platform called Craftsy and Craftsy in Espanol, offered through the Libby app. This educational app serves as an example emphasizing education when describing a possible program the library has. Instead of using a generic term like resource, the library uses the term learning platform. But even this term could be improved according to Gross. Learning might not communicate a lofty achievement as education does. Although DPL shows that they adopt this vocabulary and lexicon strategy, it is not always the case system-wide, as many of the services that the library provides are still listed as programs. An example of this is their Healthy Food for Denver's Kids Snack Program and Excel Adult High School Diploma Program, which offers opportunities for adults to earn college credit. In DPL's website, they describe their education services as programs, missing an opportunity to rebrand their terminology and emphasize these offerings as bona fide high school curricula and align themselves with schools and education. Another example of a change in vocabulary is found in DPL's website, where they use the term community engagement as a substitute for the more generic and ambiguous term outreach. DPL does include the language of education and learning in some of their social media messaging as well. For example, in their LinkedIn account, they acknowledge the modern aspect of how the library has changed. While books and ebooks, movies, and music still remain important, the library today acts as a technology hub, a community center where organizations from around the city convene and collaborate, and a welcoming place for lifelong learning. Gross does recommend changing the term lifelong learning to lifelong education to more forcefully align with an institution of education. A successful brand initiative I see that DPL established is when it received $32 million additional funding after Measure 2I was passed by voters in November 2022. Here, DPL created a name and a logo for this project and proposed showing how they were going to use this additional funding. Additionally, DPL also created a website space under their home domain dedicated to this project, where they post updates and summaries of the various projects being used with this funding. In their internal language, they also adopt the same idea in their annual report. The city librarian and the president of Denver Public Library Commission wrote, "We believe that a strong library helps create a strong community," thus unifying the idea under the single concept, strong library equals strong community, that can be communicated easily to internal and external stakeholders. In this next section, I will go over how the Denver Public Library engages in adopting some key ideas outlined in Amy K. Garmer's report, Libraries in the Exponential Age, Moving from the Edge of Innovation to the Center of Community. According to the report, a leadership roundtable discussion was held in 2015 involving leaders from business, government, and civic institutions, and they were charged with exploring ideas in library innovation, and they produced 3 strategies that focused in accelerating the development of this library-centered innovation. The first strategy mentioned in the report is that of superconnectivity. According to Garmer's report, the strategy of superconnectivity seeks to address the wealth gap in order to overcome the inequality of access, inclusion, and engagement. And one of the more obvious areas where DPL is seeking to address inequalities is in the area of technology. They provide Chromebooks, Wi-Fi hotspots, Chromebooks with integrated Wi-Fi, all with generous extended checkout periods. The library also lends out various tools such as ladders, lawn mowers, post hole diggers, and power tools. All library branches also offer Wi-Fi connectivity. Here we can see how these lending practices target populations with limited means to obtain such tools and technologies to bridge the gaps of accessibility. The next strategy that was formulated in the Roundtable working groups, as reported by Garmer, is that of America's Civic Square. In short, ACS seeks to unite libraries to address the fragmented media environment and leverage their collaboration and act as a platform to engage in civil discourse, debate, and conversation. The main components of America's Civic Square are brand, in which it is supported by public relations and marketing, digital platform, and social connection between libraries. DPL boasts of meeting rooms such as community and study rooms, which are free to book, and some even have projectors and other amenities. The library invites people and groups from the community to use these rooms and remain neutral on opinions or affiliations. The library then addresses a lack of public spaces and promotes engagement in discussions, but remaining neutral on those issues. DPL also offers extensive services that promote cultural inclusivity, such as immigrant resources, citizenship study groups, and cultural exchange programs. The third strategy in Garmer's report is the app library. It uses the metaphor of the app or application, such as apps in a smartphone, and is centered on the idea of a user-centered library that fosters on creativity and informal training and education. The Denver Public Library offers a variety of creative equipment to use in the space, such as a recording studio with a GarageBand and Logic Pro X software. Their Idea Labs maker spaces have 3D printers, digital embroidery machines, Cricut machines, and computers with Adobe Creative Cloud. And although the library offers Idea Labs for their communities, they only appear in 6 of their 27 total branches in their library system. DPL also offers downloadable resources such as the Spanish video streaming platform, the Shelf TV, and music streaming with Freegal Music Plus. Together with searchable databases, DPL provides ample resources for early childhood education and informal learning opportunity areas that the Garmer report describes as being a focal point in their app library strategy. This is a photo collage of the Denver Public Library's Idea Lab, maker spaces with young community members in action. As an app library, the Denver Public Library shows promising steps in providing the space, framework, and platform to groups and individuals to create their own education skills and experiences and be a center for innovation in their communities. In addition to providing innovative services, it is critical that a public library fosters diversity, equity, and inclusion through their policies, practices, and programs. Denver Public Library's statement of mission and values makes specific mention of equity, stating we work to change inequitable practices, structures, and policies and attitudes that drive them to provide opportunities for every person in our community to thrive. As we do so, we actively examine our roles in perpetuating oppressive systems. While this statement sounds promising, closer examination shows that DPL's DEI efforts leave much to be desired. To assess Denver Public Library's efforts toward diversity, equity, and inclusion, we will examine the core areas outlined in the DEI scorecard by Harper et al. These measured areas are embeddedness of DEI into the culture and climate of the organization, training and education recruitment, hiring, retention, and promotion, budget priorities for DEI, and data practices. As we move through this section, it is worth noting that while our course typically uses the acronym DEI, DPL's programs, groups, and positions are typically noted with the acronym EDI. They are used interchangeably in this section. The first aspect to examine is how embedded DEI is in the culture and climate of Denver Public Library. And a great starting point to examine this is an organization's strategic plan. We have made mention already of DPL's strategic roadmap for 2021 through 2024 and of the interactive dashboard used to track success along the road. Neither of these sources specifically name or outline DEI as a goal or strategic theme. However, the following indicators of success are included with respect to the goal of challenging inequity. The first is DPL's equity score, which is described as staff perception that the library is committed to eliminate racial and ethnic inequities in the organization. If you take a look at the purple bar graph on the right side of the slide, you can see that this equity score is on the decline since 2015. DPL partially attributes this decline to the decreased staff engagement resulting from the COVID pandemic, as well as a change in the way the survey was administered to staff. The strategic roadmap also aims for success with removing barriers through a DEI-focused review of library policies, procedures, and practices. The DPL website indicates that an undated page that the library has recently hired a new EDI director and is in progress of building out a new EDI department to focus on assessing equitable practices throughout the library. However, the 2023 action plan and a 2022 annual report are both notably missing any mention of the EDI department or committee. Even more concerning, the public dashboard tracking DPL's efforts to cultivate an inclusive organization focused on equitable outcomes and services for all, leading with race, shows that all parts of this goal are either disrupted or discontinued altogether. With little targeted focus on DEI, it is concerning to see that these goals are not on track for the organization. DPL's strategic roadmap also indicates that the organization will be challenging inequity by making investments that are reflective of the local community, stating that an unspecified percentage of operating expenditures will be dedicated to minority, local, and women-owned businesses. There is currently no data available in the 2022 annual report, action plan, or strategic roadmap dashboard to indicate the plan for this goal or success of this goal to date. This is not to say that there are no efforts to embed DEI into DPL's culture, but we see this primarily through the programming offered by the organization. Denver's cultural inclusivity efforts are centered around their Plaza program, which offers resources, classes, events, and a blog highlighting the diverse culture communities in and around Denver. The classes and resources are provided in a number of languages, including Aramaic, Arabic, Burmese, Chinese, Dari, English, Farsi, French, Karen, Kinyarwanda, Nepali, Pashto, Russian, Somali, Spanish, Swahili, Vietnamese. The Plaza Group programs primarily include English conversation groups, immigration help, and the citizenship study groups. We can see some success here with DPL's inclusivity for patrons, as the results of the 2022 DPL community survey shows that 89% of the randomized sample and 93% of the open survey responses agree that DPL is a welcoming place for people of all backgrounds and identities. The last way we can see the potential embeddedness of DEI and DPL is through the Racial Equity Action Plan. Although we were only able to locate a draft from the 2021, it does not appear that it was ever finalized or implemented. The 2021 REAP draft targets several citywide goals which are consistent with Denver's Office of Social Equity and Innovation. This draft contains 10 highly detailed strategies for improving DEI at DPL. Some of the strategies include the launch of DEI training specific to leadership, an external review of HR practices, an EDI-focused review of library policies, and the creation of a 5-year DEI plan. Unfortunately, as previously mentioned, it is unclear if these strategies were ever implemented or tracked. There is no data publicly available to support the success of these strategies. The next area of the DEI scorecard we examined is the training and education offered within the organization. As previously mentioned, there are several training initiatives by DPL that appear to be either canceled or abandoned. These include the Foundations and Equity Training for all staff, as well as the Intercultural Development Assessment and Training that was poised to be targeted to leadership staff. We can see, however, that DPL has successfully completed implementation of a trauma-informed, culturally responsive wellness model for library staff. This model is designed to cultivate individual and community well-being and includes initiatives such as bi-monthly wellness meetings for BIPOC staff, racial healing circles, access to annual subscription for inclusive wellness app, paid time off for wellness activities, trauma-informed wellness training, employee resource groups, and on-site mental health services. This was outlined in the 2023 action plan and, according to the strategic roadmap dashboard, has been successfully completed and implemented. While there are many places where DPL has room for improvement with regard to the DEI initiatives, we can see that care for employee well-being is high on the priority list, and there is a level of intersectionality with DEI here that make it worth mentioning as part of the report. We would have liked to learn more about the internal trainings offered at DPL, but with no response to our inquiry, we were unable to examine this further. Similarly, there is not much information publicly available about DPL's recruitment, hiring, retention, and promotion practices. What we can see are the relatively new initiatives undertaken by DPL, which seek to improve staff engagement and, by extension, retention. In 2022, Denver Public Library launched their staff affinity groups, which seek to create inclusive environments where library staff can connect with others and share their lived experience. These kinds of affinity groups seek to build community and camaraderie among staff and may ultimately increase retention. Similarly, one of the 2023 action plan goals was to conduct an equitable pay analysis amongst all staff. This initiative sought to examine both internal and public-facing positions at the library and to adjust employee salaries to reflect their experience as well as market compensation for comparable work. We can say that DPL was at least partially successful in this initiative, as their 2023 third quarter action plan update indicates that the equitable pay analysis has been completed and that 360 employees have received pay increases. This equitable pay analysis was conducted by the organization in collaboration with larger agencies of the City and County of Denver. We can also see from the strategic roadmap dashboard that DPL is currently recording and examining the diversity of the library leadership, because this is limited only to supervisors, managers, and directors at DPL. It is difficult to draw larger conclusions with regard to promotion of DPL's BIPOC staff. According to self-identification by library staff, the leadership at DPL is currently 65% white, a decrease from 71.3% in 2019, 20% Hispanic or Latino, an increase from 8% in 2019, 8% Black or African American, an increase from 5% in 2019, 4% Asian increased from 3% in 2019, and 1% of leadership identified as two or more races. While this distribution is predominantly white and may raise concern about diversity, you can see from the two pie charts shown that it is surprisingly reflective of the demographics of the city of Denver. The U.S. Census Bureau shows that as of July 2022, Denver is 69% white, 29% Hispanic or Latino, 8% Black or African American, 4% Asian. The major discrepancy here is that nearly 10% of Denver self-identifies as two or more races, while only 1% of the DPL leadership reflects that demographic. When it comes to the budget aspect of DEA, the information available is even more scarce. The 2022 annual report breaks down the budget as seen here on the right, with very little detail and no specific allocations for DEI initiatives. The most apparent representation of DEI in the DPL budget is through the Cultural Inclusivity Services, which we previously discussed as their Plaza program and multilingual programming. Over $300,000 have been allocated for this, and this represents about 10% of the annual budget for 2022. We can also infer that there may be some DEI initiatives included under other budget categories such as community engagement and outreach, collection development, and special collections and digital archives. For example, the organization's collection development policy indicates that selections are made to provide depth and diversity of viewpoints to the existing collection and to build the world-class Western history, genealogy, and African American research library collections. And the 2023 Action Plan seeks to expand the world language collection. Furthermore, 2023 saw the reopening of DPL's Blair Caldwell African American Research Library, which prioritizes community access to a large number of primary sources related to African American heritage. So while DPL's budget may not have specified the line items designated for DEI development, we can infer that it is not entirely disregarded, and it is likely integrated into other aspects of the library's budget. Last but not least, we examined the data practices employed by DPL to collect, analyze, and inform the organization's DEI practices. Due to the lack of responses to our inquiries, we were unable to assess how exactly the data collected is applied to new and ongoing DEI initiatives, policies, and practices. The 2022 Action Plan specifically notes that DPL does not collect cardholder demographics information. In 2022, DPL conducted a community survey data from which you have seen throughout this presentation. However, the data analysis and completion available on the strategic dashboard largely excludes the demographic information collected. For example, we previously saw a bar graph examining whether or not patrons found the library to be an inclusive environment. However, the data may be better assessed if broken down by demographic. Data regarding employees comes primarily from the City and County of Denver's 2022 Employee Engagement Survey and the demographic information provided upon hiring by new employees. Especially given the difficulty locating the information about the internal EDI committee and their efforts, it is near impossible to see how this data is applied to the DPL's policies and procedures moving forward, and whether or not DPL is successful in collecting and applying this data. Furthermore, when looking at the qualitative data collected through DPL surveys, we see that the language used differs from the goals outlined in the strategic roadmaps and action plans. While it may seem nitpicky to mention this, it is worth mentioning because small changes in language can confuse the data and make it difficult to assess genuine success of DPL's efforts. All this is to say that DPL leaves much to be desired when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We can use the information we just discussed from the DEI scorecard to make some recommendations of how to improve this. And to do so, we will take a look at the framework outlined by Local and Regional Government Alliance on Race and Equity, which you can see summarized at the bottom of this slide. Denver already has an Office of Social Equity and Innovation, which works with city departments and oversees citywide efforts to eliminate social inequity. This speaks directly to the normalized idea of acknowledging and addressing inequity with high-level investment in equity. From here, DPL can further normalize DEI with the hiring of new EDI director and establishment of the EDI committee. This is something which is referenced in several locations throughout the materials reviewed. However, it does not appear that the EDI committee is currently active, and if they are, their efforts certainly can be made more transparent to both staff and patrons. The EDI committee referenced appears to be formed internally, so DPL may also benefit from consulting outside resources to create these functional change teams. DPL had also begun work on, and later abandoned, intercultural development assessment and training for leadership staff as a first step towards DEI training for all employees. DPL would do well to revisit and reinvigorate this initiative working from the top down to normalize DEI awareness and training within the organization. At the next level, DPL can begin organizing DEI efforts by providing all staff training. We saw in our examination that DPL focused on a trauma-informed, culturally responsive wellness model for staff. However, there is a notable absence of equity training, and this is one of the tracked goals on the strategic dashboard that has been entirely abandoned. While it is, of course, critical to maintain the well-being of staff, and the training already provided should not be dismissed, it is imperative that additional training be provided to staff so that they have the capacity and ability to provide service to a diverse population of patrons. DPL may also see significant benefits by expanding their community partnerships. When examining the program and services offered by the Plaza, which you may remember focuses on cultural inclusivity, there is a distinct opportunity to connect with outside organizations rather than relying solely on library-run programs. While DPL has made a goal of partnering with these local organizations, it is unclear from the programming available what form these partnerships take, and it is evident that there could be additional or strengthened involvement. Finally, there is significant work to be done when it comes to operationalizing DEI within DPL. As previously mentioned, DPL had at least drafted a very detailed racial equity action plan in August of 2021. However, there is no indication that this has been implemented or updated since. This is surprising, as the Denver Office of Social Equity and Innovation requires each department to have a REAP in place, and significant progress can be made by DPL by recommitting to and functionally implementing the REAP development or creating a new one. When reviewing the draft, it was clear that DPL would need to also develop assessment tools to track their progress. And we can see this lacking as well when we examine the data collection practices previously discussed. While the Racial Equity Action Plan is part of the last stage of the GARE report, it is clear that with so much to do, the REAP will be a significant contribution to all stages of integrating DEI within Denver Public Library. Overall, it seems that this organization's theoretical values are misaligned from its actions when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. While steps have clearly been made in the right direction, such as the establishments of staff affinity groups, increased diversity in leadership, and the recent Equitable pay analysis, Denver Public Library still has much room for improvement in this regard. Overall, Denver Public Library is making efforts to keep up with current trends affecting public libraries, but there are substantial changes that can or perhaps should be made to the examined areas to improve DPL's presence in the community. Denver Public Library shows the most success with the adoption of digital resources and access provided to school-age children. The My Denver card for these children touches upon asset-based community development by providing access to the community resources such as cultural and recreation centers. Meanwhile, DPL's app library provides numerous streaming platforms and searchable databases to the patrons, particularly school-age children. DPL also does a great job embodying super connectivity by providing both digital and physical resources such as tools to bridge the gap of accessibility in their community. These digital resources are made even more accessible through the employment of e-cards, and this availability is extended to all Colorado residents. Though it is worth noting that this extension of resources has potential to cause strain in the organization and must be carefully managed. There are several areas, however, that do not qualify as successes, but show valiant efforts that may just need additional attention, focus, and funding. To begin with, DPL has begun utilizing education-based language in their lexicon, but the application is inconsistent. Community engagement is used instead of outreach, but we still see events listed as programs rather than classes, and the use of the term learning instead of the stronger education. DPL also shows pride in and efforts towards community engagement with initiatives such as community conversations, and the available data shows a generally positive view of the organization. That said, it is unclear if these are still ongoing or how the information gleaned from these conversations is applied to DPL's strategic plan and the goals moving forward. Similarly, DPL claims to place significant importance in fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion, but an examination of these implementation of the practices and policies that would support this shows that they are failing short when it comes to action. This begins to highlight the areas where DPL has room for improvement. Throughout our research on all areas covered, it became clear that there is not enough data available to properly track or assess the success of DPL's lofty goals. It may be that the information is just not publicly available, and without a response from DPL, we were simply unable to view the relevant data. It seems more likely, however, that DPL would benefit from more rigid and ongoing data collection practices. Even the data available was prone to misinterpretation due to poor or confusing phrasing, and the data collected and ascribed to several of the goals on DPL's strategic dashboard were not quite aligned with the goal being tracked. Even seemingly simple data is unavailable, such as demographic information for card holders or source tracking for new library card signups. DPL could also stand to apply concerted effort to identify and mobilize the assets in their community, as there is far more available than seems to be utilized. Furthermore, DPL's lack of actionable DEI initiatives is somewhat concerning. Several promising proposed initiatives have been altogether abandoned, and a DEI framework is notably absent from the organization's strategic plan and budget. It seems that in many of the areas assessed, the Denver Public Library has noble goals and ideals about what the library could be, but without actionable goals and clear, defined, and measurable indicators of success, the Denver Denver Public Library may continue to fall short of their own expectations. This concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for joining us.